The running back position obviously had massive shakeups after the NFL draft, so we got to go through the new top 30 running back rankings for 2025. Just make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first tier, there's a little bit of change right here, I'd say, right out of the gate. I've still got Saquon Barkley at number 1, Jahmyr Gibbs at 2, and Bijan at 3 to round out the first tier. So my thing with this tier right here is that I just believe all of these guys easily could be the running back 1. Because I know how hard it is. And I was discussing with somebody on a video the other day about how hard it is for a running back or a wide receiver or any fantasy player for that matter to repeat as the dominant number 1. And Saquon obviously was a dominant number 1 back. Saquon is coming into the year with the same Eagles offensive line. He's still going to be fresh and athletic. The guy has everything set up for him to be really good again this year. But again, I understand how hard it is to repeat. Because here's the reality that most people have not discussed this offseason yet. Jahmyr Gibbs was 2 points behind Saquon Barkley on the entire 2024 fantasy season. That's crazy. Like, you think Saquon was so dominant. Obviously, he was. But Jahmyr Gibbs was really freaking good as well. So Jahmyr Gibbs is in a similar situation to where his offensive line is still great as well. He's obviously a great player, still is young and fresh as well. The only difference here, and I think why people will have Bijan ranked over Jahmyr Gibbs more often, is because Jahmyr Gibbs is in a situation where he does not have the same offensive coordinator, who was excellent, by the way, with Ben Johnson. I still like him because I've been saying all offseason, I think it will be narrowed down to the big 3 in Detroit. And I think those big 3 are Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam Laporta. Because I don't believe this next offensive coordinator will be able to squeeze as much out of every single player. That's why I've got him above Bijan, and I like Bijan a lot. I think Bijan has also got a great offensive line that he's got as far as running the ball goes. Not as great defending the pass, but they are a good run-blocking offensive line. Bijan is obviously a great player who, at the point towards the end of the season, he was getting everything for the Atlanta Falcons, so there shouldn't be a volume issue here. And again, this first tier right here is guys I think absolutely have the number 1 ceiling. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I don't see that number 1 ceiling with these guys as much. I've got Josh Jacobs at 4 over Ashton Jeanty at 5. And Josh Jacobs, I just want to come out and say this. It's the second straight year where I truly believe Josh Jacobs is a great value in drafts. If you look at Underdog right now, which is where you should be drafting, they just opened up Best Ball Mania with a $2 million prize to first place. Josh Jacobs being drafted as the RB10. When this guy is a top 5 running back ceiling, you got to take Josh Jacobs where he's at. Because Josh Jacobs is in the same offense with that same good offensive line when they are healthy. Josh Jacobs himself was excellent last year. So they are going to continue to get him to be the workhorse running back here because that's what worked for them last year. And then I look at Ashton Jeanty. I'm really curious to see what the response is going to be because I think people's first instinct is to rank him at 4. And I understand that, right? He's absolutely in line to get every single touch. The guy could get easily 300 touches on the ground for the Raiders this year. There's no question about it. But the problem I see is that I compared this season I think Ashton Jeanty will have to Najee Harris's rookie season with the Steelers, where he had 300 plus touches in that season and finished as a top 3 PPR running back. But the reality was when you looked at the numbers deeper, he was just really inefficient. And I think Ashton Jeanty is going to see that because this Raiders offensive line is still not good. They're still rebuilding as a team. I think they'll be better, and I think Ashton Jeanty will be a really good fantasy back, but I don't see top 3 potential this year. Devon Achane at 6 and Kyren Williams at 7 to round out this tier. Achane, I ended up moving him down below Ashton Jeanty, mainly because I just don't like the Miami Dolphins this year. I really don't think they're going to be any good at all. And I think that's something that's very consistent that we've seen throughout fantasy football history is it's way more rare for a bad offense and a bad team in general to host a top 10 running back in fantasy football. It's very, very rare. So I still think Devon Achane's a boom or bust player, and when Tua is healthy, he will mostly boom, but I do put him down a little bit lower than I had him last time because I see issues with the Dolphins. And then with Kyren Williams at 7 here, It's actually really fascinating, again, to kind of see where he's being drafted on Underdog right now as the running back 11, if I'm not mistaken. You can see that on the screen right now. But Kyren Williams is in a spot where it's like, I don't get why people don't like him. Because they're looking to extend the guy that's been in the conversation all offseason. He's clearly the running back one. Blake Corum is not very good. They drafted a replacement probably for Blake Corum more than Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is in line to do really well, again, on a really good offense. I just don't see what's wrong with Kyren Williams in 2025. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, and I feel deflated talking about these guys because Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, obviously, there's a wide range of outcomes here. But here's the thing with Derrick Henry, and the reason I put him above McCaffrey. Number one, been less injured throughout his career. He's had like a couple injuries, but for the most part, the guy is built differently. He's just built differently to handle this heavy of a workload into his 30s. And Derrick Henry is also unchallenged in Baltimore. So I could very well be underranking him here. I'm just a little bit more uncomfortable with another year on his career. Like, this is the Mike Evans of running backs here for me, where at any point, Henry could absolutely take a dump on you for drafting him too high. But obviously, if everything goes right, Henry could be higher than this. And then McCaffrey here. I don't feel like I've had either of these guys accurately ranked right now because particularly with Christian McCaffrey, I don't think that it's very possible that he has like a middling running back season. And what I mean by that is I think either Christian McCaffrey will be a top 5 running back or he'll be a complete disaster for your team. A complete disaster. So having him here at 9, obviously I don't think this is where he's going to finish if he ends up playing a full 17 games. It's just really hard for me to rank him because I just don't trust the injury history here. The 49ers offensive line is actually slowly getting worse as Trent Williams gets older. I just don't have a ton of confidence with McCaffrey this year. But obviously, I'm respecting him and what he's meant to fantasy by putting him at 9. And then Jonathan Taylor at 10, Chase Brown at 11. JT is another good player that I think is just going to be more the same of what we saw last year, where there's going to be some inconsistencies, either because of injuries that he'll sustain from being a complete workhorse for this team, or just from, having a bad offense in general. But I don't think it's very arguable that he will have plenty of boom games as well. Like, I think Jonathan Taylor is still young enough, he's still explosive enough to carry his team and get you 30, 35 plus fantasy points on a weekly basis in a half PPR format. But I do think that Jonathan Taylor, I'm putting him down here because I don't like the Colts, and especially from a PPR standpoint, I don't think he's going to be as relevant as McCaffrey or a guy like Kyren Williams or Devon Achane. And then Chase Brown here, obviously untouched in the draft. Basically, they got Taj Brooks late in the draft. That's not going to affect Chase Brown. Chase Brown will handle basically everything for this backfield. Zach Moss, they re-signed him. I don't see him eating into his workload too much. Honestly, I think the bigger threat between him and Moss is Taj Brooks. But at the end of the day, Chase Brown is going to be efficient in this offense. He's going to get 15 plus carries per game, and he's going to get 4 targets per game. That's always good numbers for fantasy football. So Chase Brown realistically has like a top 5 ceiling potentially if he stays healthy and plays all 17 games. But at the end of the day, I love Chase Brown in fantasy football. Easy top 12 back. And then James Cook to round out this tier at number 12. I said it, I've been saying it the past several weeks, which is that James Cook is in a spot right now where he will continue to drop for me the longer the season goes. And the reason why, if you're not really in touch with what's going on right now with this situation, is he has already made noise like he's not going to report unless he gets a new contract. It's in the Bills' best interest and us as fantasy managers for them to sign James Cook here pretty soon. But at the same time, I don't know if they're going to do that. They may just let him play out this last year because he is a little bit of an older back at his rookie contract. He's 26. So I'm just a little uncertain. I know he obviously has top 10 upside, and especially in a contract year, it makes me want to invest in Cook, but I'm a little worried right now. Dropping down to our next tier, I love Kenneth Walker in drafts right now. Kenneth Walker is one of my favorite values at the running back position in particular on Underdog right now. You can look at it, his price on the screen right now. He's like the running back 19, running back 18 if I'm not mistaken. The guy realistically, and I'm not joking when I say this, has a top 5 ceiling. If you have not followed anything this offseason about what the Seahawks offensive coordinator has said, you should go follow it. Because Clint Kubiak, who had a lot of success last year with the Saints before they all fell apart and died on him, has been saying that Kenneth Walker is going to be busy this year. They're going to ask a ton out of him. And Kenneth Walker, I get it, was inefficient last year, but I think it also is just going to be big for him to get this level of an offensive coordinator on his side on a contract year. I am big on Kenneth Walker this year. If they give him the volume that they're talking about, this has top 5 potential right here. Breece Hall at 14, Bucky at 15 right here. With Breece, I said this earlier last week, which was that he deserves so much better than the Jets because they act like he's like a bust. Like they act like he's the village idiot. And it's like, Breece Hall is actually an elite running back who's being treated like garbage in New York because that's what they do. And I don't get this whole, like, we're going to make this a trio backfield or a duo backfield. Breece Hall needs to eat. They talked about trading him. They didn't end up trading him. Maybe they do. But if Breece Hall is a Jet, I do worry about his upside just because of what they're going to do with Braylon Allen. So, yeah, I've got issues with Breece. Not the player, but the landing spot. I hate the Jets at this point. Free Breece Hall. That's what I'm talking about. And then Bucky Irving at 15. I might have him underranked. I'm sure people will holler about this one. But with Bucky Irving, there's too many things that are making me uncomfortable here. Bucky Irving is obviously the better running back between him and Rachaad White. I'm not disputing that. I was on board with them all last year. The thing that I'm disputing is that this is the third straight year where there's been an offensive coordinator change for the Bucs. And Liam Cohen loved Bucky Irving, and I'm not saying that this new offensive coordinator won't, but you just never know which guy that he prefers. So Bucky Irving, it would not shock me in the least that he comes into this year and is just completely different workload than he had at the last half of last season. So I'm putting him down at 15 to kind of safeguard that because I think his ceiling could be capped by volume issues. And then Chuba Hubbard at 16. Honestly, it's a really safe pick in drafts right now. Like, if you look at his draft price, it's definitely a really safe pick. Like, he's, I think, the running back 18 right now in Underdog. The guy will finish as a top 18 running back. Like, he's got a top 12 ceiling in all reality if he stays healthy. Dave Canales loves him. He's been talking him up since he became the head coach. They signed him to the deal. They want Chuba Hubbard to be their lead back. The way I am, and if you're familiar with the channel, I was huge on Chuba Hubbard last year. He's my most drafted player by far. Helped me win $19,000 on Underdog. But the reality is, this is the way the game is played. I'm not as big on Chuba this year because he's not as much of a screaming value. Whereas you look at Kenneth Walker, that's more of a value right there because he's got top 5 upside, but is being valued as a bottom-end running back too. So if you want to get in on drafting Kenneth Walker today, just go down in the comments and grab that Underdog link that's there and use code FFN to sign up for Underdog. And when you use code FFN to sign up for Underdog, when you go to deposit your money to get into one of these drafts, Best Ball Mania is $25. The Schnauzer is $3. The Puppy is $5. And those $3 and $5 drafts, by the way, $100,000 to first place. So you're giving yourself a shot at the big money. So when you use code FFN to sign up for Underdog, they will match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus credits right here. And like I said, I won $19,000 on Underdog last year playing in these best ball tournaments. So of course, I'm going to tell you to give yourself a chance at the big money here. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we've got 2 rookies that are going to start out this tier that obviously are going to be widely discussed. Travion Henderson at 17 and Amarian Hampton at 18. It's actually kind of funny. When I was ranking out my running backs earlier this week, I noticed that I had Henderson above where Underdog has him. And the irony of that is I have not been big on Henderson really up until right now. And I think there's a huge chance that I just totally misread the situation here. I did not think a team was going to value him as a 3-down back. Reports are coming out, the Patriots value him as a 3-down back. Like, there's a real chance that he replaces Ramondre Stevenson entirely. That's wild. Now, at the very least, the reason I've got him here at 17 is because I still think Ramondre will be involved, especially towards the goal line. And I think that sharks away some of his ceiling there. But the reason I love Travion still in the top 20 is because he's going to get so much work through the air. This guy is going to get check down after check down. And not just check downs. They will send him on routes. He's so explosive. So Henderson here, at this point, I am on board with him. Amarian Hampton as well. If he was drafted by the Broncos and he had just an open field to run through, he would be a top 10 back for me. But that's not the reality. And it's not even that I think Najee will be the better fantasy running back. Amari and Hampton is going to be the better fantasy back because they drafted him in the first round. You don't draft a first round running back to sit him on the bench for the majority of the year. That will not happen. But I believe what will happen is that Najee probably loses volume within the first month to Amari and Hampton. And I still think he probably holds on to short yardage situations and even goal line situations because I do think that they will want to use Najee still. So as far as I'm concerned, I think Amari and Hampton's production for fantasy this year is going to be more backloaded than front-loaded, which in a best ball format is actually pretty good for when you're talking about those playoff winning weeks. DeAndre Swift at 19 and Joe Mixon at 20. Now, DeAndre Swift, there's a lot changing here with me because I was really big on drafting him before the NFL draft and even a couple days after whenever Underdog opened up their best ball tournaments. He was valued as like a low-end running back 3. He is not anymore. That price has risen drastically over the last week and a half. And at this point, I just don't find as much value with Swift because I think people are ranking him properly at this point. I think they're valuing him properly. But I still have him a little bit above ADP and running back rankings on Underdog because I see tons of upside here. Swift in this offense with Ben Johnson, with a better offensive line that they were absolutely 100% committed to improving during free agency in particular, this is a good shot for him to finish as a top 15 running back. So ceiling is still above this. I just don't know, Swift had a great offensive line years ago with the Eagles, and he still didn't do much. So at the end of the day, I still don't believe Swift's that good, but I do believe the situation is one of the great ones. Joe Mixon at 20, and now Alvin Kamara at 21. These are obviously our two older guys, and common history and knowledge would say that these are low rankings, and I could agree with that. I think that's very plausible that I have these guys underranked. But at the end of the day here, with Joe Mixon, he's another step closer to 30. And it's not even like he's different from Kamara in the sense that he hasn't been injured. He has been injured. Last year, he missed a decent amount of time with an ankle injury. So Joe Mixon is not exactly a guy that I think is going to be comfortably getting 300 touches. I don't think that that's going to be the case here. I think they'll try to make him that, and that's why he's going to be a good draft pick still. But I think he will miss time and have some bad games because he's dealing with an injury and playing through it. Same thing with Kamara here. I think Kamara is obviously the most important piece on the entire team, let alone the offense. And the pressure of that at this stage of his career, I think is just too much to handle. So Alvin Kamara is going to be hyper-targeted again offensively, hyper-used, plenty of volume, but at the same time, probably not as many touchdowns and probably not as much efficiency because the Saints are a sunken ship. Not a sinking ship, a sunken ship offensively. And then Quinshon Judkins at 22. I love this situation. I really like Quinshon Judkins. But I don't love the Browns fit. Obviously, in a couple years, I think he'll be a much better fantasy asset. But the Browns' offensive line is still going through a struggle, and they clearly have no quarterback answer right now. Obviously, they're going to try to use Flacco as long as they can. But there's going to be tons of pressure on Judkins right away. And I think he will struggle to deal with that. He may either front-load this production, backload this production, or just maybe very, very scattered throughout the season. But I do think he inevitably is a top 25 guy because they drafted him to be their number one starter on day one. Dropping down to the next tier right here. James Conner at 23, Isaiah Pacheco at 24. So obviously there's two guys I'm not as excited for. And realistically, if James Conner actually didn't get injured at the end of last season, I'd probably have more excitement for James Conner. But James Conner did get injured at the end of last season, even after they signed him to a new deal. So it's not that I think that James Conner is going to all of a sudden lose production to Trey Benson, who I do think will take a leap, by the way, and is a good pick in underdog drafts as well. It's more the fact that I think James Conner is at that age where it's okay, are these injuries going to catch up to him? Because he's been injured basically throughout his career. So James Conner, I'm just worried about the injury factor here. But when he plays, I think he will be good. And then Isaiah Pacheco here, it's a fork in the road season for him. And I'll be honest here, no BS, I really don't know what to do with him right now. I would love to draft him his underdog price is low end running back 3, but at the same time, like, I just don't know how I think about it. He looked completely different after that injury. And maybe he just needs a full offseason. Maybe that's the case. Isaiah Pacheco, I'm just worried about, but there's no question like he's going to lead the backfield because they just didn't do enough. Kareem Hunt's there, but they're going to continue to use him like they did last year, sparingly when they can. So Isaiah Pacheco will lead the backfield. I just don't know if this is going to be a good season for Pacheco. But I'm definitely going to advise you to take him a couple times in drafts, like I will as well, but just not certain of the outcome of this one being super high. Brian Robinson Jr. at 25 and Caleb Johnson at 26. Brian Robinson Jr., I'll tell you, it took me a little bit to get on board with this one, but I'm slowly rising on him again, and that's exclusively because of the fact that he was a huge draft winner. Washington did not go after a running back, and he's on a great offense. You cannot overlook running backs on great offenses here. Even if you don't want to buy into the player, Brian Robinson Jr. is being valued as the RB30 right now in underdog drafts. Like, that's a guy that you want to take because of the offensive upside here. So Brian Robinson Jr. absolutely has a higher ceiling than this, but realistically, I don't think he'll finish much higher than this because of injury history. And then Caleb Johnson here, love the pick. As a Steelers fan, I really loved Caleb Johnson pre-draft. I think they will make him the day one starter in Pittsburgh. I think he is basically a cheaper and faster version of Najee Harris. He has the size, and even though he had a slow 40 time in the combine, don't let that fool you. Watch the film on this guy. He's actually really fast. And Pittsburgh, obviously being a run-first team, there's going to be upside here. Now, I do believe that he will have touches taken away from by Jaylen Warren, which is obviously going to be a problem here for his ceiling capabilities, but I do ultimately believe also that Caleb Johnson will get enough, and especially at the goal line, to make him a top 30 back. And then David Montgomery to round us out in this tier 27. This is going to feel low for people. I've already seen comments on my first running back ranking video after free agency. I still feel the same. Like, my problem with David Montgomery this year is several things. Number one, I have said over and over again with the Lions, I do not believe that this next offensive coordinator will be able to get everything out of all their guys like Ben Johnson was able to. I think Ben Johnson in that two running back system was so unique. So many teams have tried to replicate that throughout the NFL over the years, and nobody's been able to do it like him. Number two, Dave Montgomery is older and has been injured basically every season. So let's just say that he loses volume. Do you think he's going to be more efficient this year with all the injuries that he's had? I would bet against that. So Dave Montgomery, I think it's the year to jump off the board with Dave Montgomery. Don't view him as much of a value this year. View him as more of a pitfall in drafts. And dropping down to our last tier, Aaron Jones and Travis Etienne. Aaron Jones is just one of those guys I don't have tons of excitement for. I can't draw this up. Like, Aaron Jones is going to be efficient when they give him the ball, and I think that he will continue to be used more sparingly because they have Jordan Mason now. And I think that Jordan Mason is also another sneaky good player to get in drafts this year. Aaron Jones still will be efficient because I think they will lighten his workload, but obviously it lowers his ceiling. And this is already a pass-first offense, so Aaron Jones realistically could get like 12 to 15 touches per game this year. He'll be good with those touches, but I do believe that that's basically where he's going to get. Travis Etienne, I got to tell you, I am cautiously ranking him here at 29. And it's obviously not that much of a statement ranking at 29. But at the same time, the way I think about this is he's being valued as like the RB37 on underdog right now. That's so low. And just think about what Liam Cohen just did with Bucky Irving. Travis Etienne, regardless of what you think about him and what he did last year, go back to 2023. That guy was awesome that year and is going to be involved as a receiving back. Liam Cohen wants that, and he sees that upside in Travis Etienne, so I believe he will end up being an important back in fantasy this year. I've actually drafted him a bunch more than I did last year because I didn't like him as much last year. I'm back on Etienne this year. And then RJ Harvey to round this out at 30. For the sole reason that he was a Denver Broncos draft pick. He will, in all likelihood, be the number one guy. Now, I'm not as big on RJ Harvey. I did not like the prospect that much. just wasn't my guy. But Sean Payton talked him up, said he watched tons of hours of film on the guy, loved him. I'm not trying to take anything away from Sean Payton. The guy's a genius. But just me personally, I just don't know if this is going to work out. I'll believe it when I see it. I've got him at 30. So let me know what you think of the running back rankings right now for 2025. And if you want to see the top 30 wide receivers for this year, click on this video right here.